So today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on how to make the Mavis String Bag, and here's an example of a finished bag made with Motivera Mornington 100% cotton. So the tutorial today will be in US crochet terms, and you just need any 8-ply cotton. I'm using this Flinders cotton, which is from Spotlight, and a 5mm crochet hook. So start off by making a slip knot, and we're going to chain 6. So we've got our 6 chains, and we want to do a slip stitch to this first chain to join it into a circle. So just slip through there and through the one on the hook. So now we've got our ring, and we're going to be working into that ring. So first do chain 3, which counts as our first double crochet, and chain 1, and then double crochet, just working into the center of that circle we created. So do double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, chain 1. So we can see we're getting these spaced out double crochets, so we keep going until we've got 12 double crochet chain 1 repeats worked into that ring. And remember, you're counting this starting chain as the first double crochet. So I'll just keep going. To finish the row, we're going to slip stitch into this third chain in the starting chain 3. So we just want to go under the 2 top loops and slip stitch through here. And that's our first row completed, and then we'll do a slip stitch into this space and start the next row. So now we're going to do chain 4. So this is counting as double crochet and chain 2, and then we'll work into the next chain space. So this one over here, do a double crochet in there, chain 2, next chain space, double crochet and chain 2. So keep working around the circle like that with a double crochet and chain 2 in each chain space from the previous row. Okay, so now we just check that we've got the right number of stitches. So again, we should have 12 double crochets. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Finish with a chain 2, and then we're going to slip stitch to the third chain in our starting chain 4 to complete the circle. So this is what we've got after the second row. And so then we're going to do a slip stitch just into this space and start with chain 4 again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now this time we're going to start expanding, so we're going to do another double crochet into that same space. So you can see there's 2 worked into that first space, and chain 2, and then 1 DC worked into this next chain 2 space. So you can see here, if I flatten it out, So we've got 2 in the first space, 1 in the second space, so we're going to do 2 in the next one. So we need to do chain 2 and then double crochet, chain 2, and then we're going back into this same space. So we're going to repeat that pattern. So the next space we're only doing 1 double crochet, and then the next space will be 2, and always doing that chain 2 in between the double crochets. So you can see we've got 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So I'll just repeat that pattern around to the end of this row. Okay, so we're at the end of this row. You can see it's a bit wrinkly to start with, but if you flatten it out, you can start to see the shape. So I'm going to again join to finish the row, join with a slip stitch to the 3rd chain in this starting chain 4. So we've got 1, 2, 3. So this one here. And pull that tight. So if we flatten it out, you can start to see the shape forming. So it's actually going to look like a hexagon because we're expanding in 6 points. So you can see here we've got 2 DCs worked into the same space, then 1, then 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, all the way around. So you should have 18 double crochets. And so now all of the rows are going to be the same. After this, where we're expanding, we'll always be working 2 double crochets into the spaces where we had 2 double crochets in the row below. So we're going to get these V's lining up. So I'll show you with the next row. So again, we need to first start with a slip stitch into that space to get our yarn starting from the middle of the space. So we do chain 4 and then work a DC into the same space. So chain 2, so we're going 1 double crochet here, 1 double crochet in this space, and then you can see we've got that V that formed in the previous row, so we need to work 2 double crochets into there. So 1, 2. So you can see we've got our V's in each row lining up. So we repeat that pattern. So it's 1 double crochet in this space, chain 2, 1 double crochet, chain 2, and then we're at our next V, so we're doing 2 double crochets in this one with the chain 2 in between. So then again repeat that, 1 double crochet, chain 2, 1 double crochet, chain 2, the next V, 2 double crochets in here, so just keep going to the end of the row. Okay, so we're at the end of the row, and again we need to slip stitch to the third chain. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And pull it tight. So now if we flatten it out, we can start to see it forming a bit of a hexagon shape because we're expanding in 6. We've got 6 expanding parts around the circle. So here, 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 and here. And you can see the V's lining up. So we're just going to continue like that until we have 60 stitches. So in the pattern, our foundation chain of 6 was row 1, and this is row 2. So this is row 3, 4, 5, if you're following along with the pattern. So we want to get to we're going to keep expanding like this till we get to row 11, and you'll have a total of 60 double crochets once you get there. So keep going there, and we'll catch up again when we're at that row 11. Okay, so I've now finished my row 11. So you can see it should look like this. Bit of a hexagon shape with our 6 rows of V's that line up, and the width is about 25 centimeters. Or 10 inches. And so now what we're going to do is stop expanding. So you're going to do 15 more rows where we're just doing 1 double crochet in each chain space the whole way around. So we're starting the row the same as always. Do a slip stitch into the middle of that chain space. Do our chain 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. But now instead of working back into the same space here, we just do the second DC into that next space across. So you can see the start there, and we'll just continue working like this. So remember, always doing the chain 2 between the double crochets and working into those gaps from the previous row. Okay, so we're up to the first V, and we're just doing 1 double crochet into the V, and chain 2, and keep going, next one around. So we just keep working like that the whole way around. We're nearly at the end of this row 12, and you can see here it's harder now to see that starting chain 4 because it flops over and it looks almost like continuation of this row here. So you might like to just use a stitch marker to mark that first chain 4 for each row so that you don't miss it when you're working too fast. So I'll just finish this row. And so then again, like with the previous rows, we're going to finish by doing a slip stitch to the third chain in that starting chain 4. So if we lay it down flat, you can see that even though we've stopped expanding, it still looks flat, and it will continue to look flat, but for quite a few more rows. But you can see we've stopped doing our V's, so this is where our V's end, and from row 12 onwards we've just got 1 double crochet in each chain 2 space, and you'll keep working like that. I'll come back and check in with you after a few more rows. So we're starting each row the same as we have before, just doing a slip stitch into this space, starting with the chain 4, and then the first double crochet is going into that next space across. And again, yeah, you might like to mark that with a stitch marker, and we just keep working around and around. And you'll see that this starting chain now will start to kind of step across as we work. Keep working. So keep doing those rounds. You need to do 15 rows like that, where you'll have 60 double crochets in each row. Okay, so we're at the near the end of row 16, and you can see that the edges are starting to curl up. It's not looking flat anymore, so we're starting to form the bag shape, which you can see when you fold it in half. So I'm going to just show you how to join in a new piece of yarn. So normally I would do this using the same color yarn for this joining method, but I'm using a different color. So this light blue will be my new color that I'm joining in, because that'll make it easier for you to see how the join actually looks. So we'll just do one more. So I want the join to be close to the end of the row. So if you're using the same color, you wouldn't need to worry about whether it's close to the end of the row or not. And so what I'm going to do is start my double crochet as normal. So I've yarned over and pulled up a loop, and then just bring in the new piece of yarn, leave a bit of a tail to sew in, and so holding both pieces of yarn, finish the double crochet. So like this, so you can see both pieces of yarn are captured in that double crochet now. And so on a normal project, I would then cut the purple piece of yarn and pull it through here, and you'll find that that's actually a very strong join there. Like, this can't come undone now if we tug on the blue piece. But for a string bag, I like to just give it a bit of extra strength. So what I'm going to do, instead of cutting there, is just keep working with those 2 pieces of yarn together and do my 2 chains. And then we need to do one more double crochet here in the last space from the previous row, chain 2, and then join with a slip stitch to our starting chain, like this. And at this point I'll cut that purple yarn, so the next row will just be the blue. I'm going to leave a long tail so I can sew it in, but I'll just pull that bit out. And so now I'm just working with the blue. And so we start our next row as normal, doing a slip stitch into that space and chain 4 and double crochet into the next space. So you can see now this is where the join is. So if you're using the same color yarn, it wouldn't be so obvious, but with the two colors you can see that I've just worked with both strands of yarn, the old piece and the new one, over those 2 double crochets and the chains. And that'll give you a really strong join. And then all I need to do is after I've done the next row, I'd usually wait till I've finished, I'll just weave in those ends so that they're hidden, and that gives us a really strong join. Okay, so I've finished up to row 26. So that was when we're counting that starting chain 6 that forms the ring as row 1, and then we've got 25 other rows of our DC. So 1, 2, 24, 25 rows. So now what we want to do is start forming the top part of the bag. And so you can see that at this stage it's quite wide. It hasn't, when we gather it in, it's going to come back in more curved at the top. So at the moment the top is about 43 centimeters across on my bag. And yours might be a little bit different depending on your tension and yarn. So the first thing we need to do is count 15 of these squares. So we should have 60, we should have 60 double crochets or 60 little squares. So the first part we're only going to work in the first 15 squares, so we just need to count that out and use a stitch marker. Or today I'm just using some yarn. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we're going to work to this square. So we'll mark the 16th square just with a piece of yarn. So we're not going to work into that one. We'll only work the first 15, and we're going to go back and forth across here, gathering in. So to start with, what we want to do is chain 1, and then we're going to do 2 single crochets into each square, just working into the center of the square, not into the actual chains. So I'll go ahead and start that. So we do our chain 1 and 2 single crochets into that first square. So keep going along until we get to our stitch marker, just doing 2 single crochets in each square. And then for the last one, I like to actually work the last single crochet, because we're going to turn around and be working back the other way, and it will slide across otherwise. So I like to just work it into the top of this double crochet stitch, and that just like anchors it into position. But we still only have 2 for that square, so you should have 2 for each square, and you'll have 30 single crochets in total. So I'll just count those. So I've got 30 single crochets. So now what we want to do is chain 1 and turn the work around. And so now we're working back across the top of that row that we just created of single crochets. And now we're going to do single crochet 2 together. So we insert the hook in the first stitch and pull up a loop, and then insert a hook in the second stitch, pull up a loop. Now yarn over and pull through all 3 loops on the hook. So that's our single crochet 2 together, stitch completed. So do that again. In the next stitch, pull up 1 loop, next stitch across, pull up a loop, yarn over and pull through all 3. So we're just going to finish that all the way to the end of those single crochets that we just made, and then we'll have 15 stitches, 15 of the single crochet 2 together. So that's the end of the row. So you can see it's gathered in quite a lot. If I try and flatten it out, compared to the 15 stitches we had before, has gathered right in. And so now we're just going to do 3 rows of half double crochet, working back and forth across the top of here. So just chain 1 at the start of each row, turn it, and we'll work our half double crochets into each stitch. Sometimes here it can be hard to see that last stitch that you need to work into. So if you're not sure, just go back and count the stitches to make sure you have 15. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, so we can do our next row, chain 1 and turn. And again, just half double crochet into each stitch. Chain 1, and this is our final row here for the gathered part. We'll do 1 more row of the half double crochet. Okay, and that's where we're going to finish. So we're actually going to cut the yarn. So I'm just going to yarn over and pull through. Just pull that tight. I like to leave a long tail, and we'll just pull this through. And so that's nice and tight. It's not going to come undone. You can weave this in now, but I actually like to, we're going to work a row of single crochets down the side of these stitches, and I find that that hides it well, so I usually just leave it until I do that part. So if we lay the bag flat again, you can see what we've done here. I'll do it neatly in half. So we've actually gathered in this section here. So our 15 squares has gathered in, and it's now only this wide. So we need to now make the same stitches on the other side of the bag. So we're going to count from here, and we'll use our stitch marker again. We'll need 2 stitch markers this time. So just do that. So we're going to count across 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's 15, and so this time I'm marking the 15th one, and we'll actually so we'll be starting from the next square, from the 16th one. So we have 15 that are unworked, and then to count our other end, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12, 13, 14, 15. So mark the 16th one here, and then we'll just check that that will leave 15 unworked ones on this side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, perfect. So we're just working between these 2 marked squares and doing the same thing we've just done. So we just need to join a new piece, And so for the ends I like to anchor it, so I will actually work this first single crochet, or where I join the yarn, I'm going to go through the chain stitch just to sort of anchor that end of the work. So I pull up a stitch, and what I like to do is just make sure the loose tail is flipped over the bit that we're working. Do your chain, and then we can do our first single crochet just into the square and just pull that the tail tight. So I'm just going to hold the tail there and work over it for the first few squares. So again, just hold the tail tight, and again we're just doing 2 single crochets into each square. And you can just pull that tail tight. Okay, I'm going to leave the rest to sew in when I'm finished. So I'll just finish this row, 2 single crochets into each square. So again, you should have 30 single crochets in this row. You can count it when you finish to check. Okay, so this is our last square, and I'll just work the last single crochet into the top of that double crochet stitch so it's anchored. And so again we do chain 1 and turn the work. So in this second row we're doing single crochet 2 together all the way across, so we're reducing our 30 single crochets down to 15. So you can go ahead and work those single crochet 2 together stitches all the way across. So again we chain 1, and now we're going to do the 3 rows of half double crochets, so you can go ahead and do that. But at the end, don't cut the yarn this time. Okay, so up to our last row. Remember, do not cut it at the end of this row, because we're going to just keep working the yarn to do the rest of the border. Okay, so we've finished our last stitch there, and don't cut the yarn because we're going to keep working down the side of the bag. So I'll just show you when it's laid flat what it looks like now. We can take off those stitch markers. So we've got our 2 gathered sections that we've built up here that are on opposite sides of the bag, and then in between those we've got the 2 unworked sections of 15 squares each. So you can see that already we've gathered it in quite a lot, and it's taking the shape much better. So what we're going to do is our straps will actually go here, connecting up over the top down either side of the gathered sections, and then we're going to do a border along here. So to start with, we'll actually do the easy part to start with, which is we'll chain 1 and then start working down the side here of the rows we've just formed, and then work across these unworked squares and up the side of this second gathered section, and then we'll start to form our strap and it'll become obvious once you see it coming together. I hope it'll make more sense. So do a chain 1, and now we're working down here, so you just want to work into the sides of those stitches a single crochet in each stitch. So there's our first one, and working into the side here, our next stitch. Doesn't really matter which part of the stitch you work into, but I try to work around at least 2 strands of yarn just so that it's nice and strong. So here it's going to be easiest to work into that part, and then for our last one, just into here. So we had 5 rows, so you should have 5 single crochets here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1 into each row. And now we're going to just continue working in these squares. So again, it's just 2 single crochet in each square. So just continually working around there. Okay, so that was the last square, and now we're working up the side of these, the next gathered section. So again, we want to put 1 single crochet in each row, so you're going to have 5 single crochets. Okay, so we've got our 5 worked in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we're going to start the tricky part, which is the foundation single crochet stitch. And that's basically, instead of working a chain and then in the next row working single crochets into it, we're actually forming a chain and our single crochets at the same time. So if you're a beginner at this point, you might prefer to just do a chain instead. So you can do that if you want to just do a chain and work single crochets into the chain in the next row. If you do that, make sure you just do an extra row of single crochet at the end, otherwise your straps won't be thick enough. But this is the foundation single crochet stitch. So first we need to insert the hook into the top of the first half double crochet from that row, and we pull up a loop. And so this loop is like our foundation chain. So then we're pulling up another loop through that, which forms our the loop that you would normally have in a single crochet, and then yarn over and draw through those 2. So it kind of goes a bit sideways. But so this part here is like the chain, and that's the top section is like a normal single crochet. So then to start the next one, we need to pull up a chain, essentially our chain loop. So we're going into the base of the previous foundation single crochet stitch. So we go into here and pull up a loop. So that's our base chain. Then pull a loop through there, and then yarn over and pull through those 2. So now we can see we've got here, that's our first stitch, the top of the first stitch here, and top of the second stitch. And these are the base of those foundation single crochet stitches. So I'll provide a link to another tutorial on how to do the foundation single crochet stitch that might have just a different perspective on it if that is not clear to you. So otherwise, go ahead and keep working those stitches. So we need to do 60 foundation single crochet stitches. So that's for a long strap that can go over your shoulder. If you prefer to have a short strap, or if you prefer to carry the bag in your hand, you might want a shorter strap so that it's not dragging on the ground once it's loaded up. And so I then recommend that you do between 30 and 40 foundation single crochet stitches. So it is a bit awkward to do the first time, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty easy to do. And so you can see that we're starting to form the strap that will curve around and join back on on this side. So I'm just marking every 20 stitches. It's easier to count 20 and not lose track of your counting than to try and do 60. Okay, so now I've done my second handle and I'm up to the 59th foundation single crochet. So we're going to do the same as before. Pull up that base loop for the 60th foundation single crochet, then insert the hook under the top of the half double crochet on the end there, and then pull a loop through both of those, yarn over and pull through both. And so that's our last stitch for that round, and we need to just join with a slip stitch here, and I like to just pull it really tight. So now we can see the bag shape already. We've got our straps here, and we're going to do another row of single crochet just the whole way around. So you can go ahead and start that. So just one single crochet in each stitch, and this row will be a lot faster. So start with a chain, and I think I'm going to run out of blue, so you can see that's all the blue that I have left. But I still have some purple yarn from the base part, so I'll finish with that if I run out of the blue. So I'm starting on the strap and just doing one stitch into each of those foundation single crochet stitches. And so you can see the thickness of the strap. If we finish here, which is what was called for in the pattern, then our straps are going to be just over 1 centimetre wide. So if you have extra yarn to spare, you might like to do a third loop of single crochets, or even 4, depending on your yarn, how much yarn you have. I'm aiming to do 3 on this bag. So if you did a chain in the last row instead of the foundation single crochet, at this point you'll be needing to work 1 single crochet into each chain. And then obviously you'll only have the height of 1 row of single crochets, so you'd need to do at least 1 more row of single crochet around that top section. Okay, last stitch and then a slip stitch to that first single crochet from that row. So if you're following the pattern, you can stop here and finish the bag off like that. So I'm going to cut this blue piece and weave in the ends. So that's what your bag would look like with the straps just over 1 centimeter wide. So what I'm going to do today though is add a third row using the purple yarn. So I've just joined that with a slip stitch and I haven't actually sewn in the ends yet. I'll just hide those in here, but this is what the finished bag will look like. When you flatten it out, you can see the measurements are about 30 centimeters across the top there, and about 35 centimeters at the widest part, and around 31 centimeters long, and the straps should be about 30 centimeters, 33 centimeters around the straps. And so that's our finished bag. You can see both sides. So that join that we did with the colors is going to be sort of on the side. It's not too obvious there, and I just need to go back and sew in all those ends. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for the Mavis bag. You can find the full pattern with photo tutorial on my blog, as well as the instructions in UK crochet terms, and you can find other crochet patterns on my blog as well for other string bags and beanies and scarves and things. So check out my blog at motherbunch.wordpress.com. Thanks for watching.